Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Radio FWD podcast. I'm super excited to bring on Leslie Hatton here today to chat a little bit about one of my favorite movies of all time and starring Cillian Murphy, who, of course, is the subject of Leslie's screening series at the Eyesore Cinema, Cillian Me Softly. So thanks so much for coming on the show, Leslie. I'm super excited to talk about Sunshine, which is like one of my favorite movies of all time.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited that's one of your favorite movies. That's exciting.
Yeah. Not a very common choice, especially not from the Danny Boyle oeuvre, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot more popular choices. I'm sure there's a lot more 28 Days Later and Trainspotting fans than there are Sunshine fans. But I'm a fervent Sunshine defender, and especially Sunshine third act defender.
Yes, same.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll get into that. I think the film enters the echelon of a number of films that have a genre switch up and do it brilliantly and do it really well. But let's start out with your screening series and maybe a little bit about Eyesore Cinema. If you could tell us a little bit about what goes on there and what you do in particular.
Eyesore's been around about 16 years, and I went there for a screening of the Coralie, oh gosh, I'm going to butcher her name, Fargeat?
Fargeau, I think.
Fargeau?
Yeah.
Okay. Her movie, Revenge.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was a Microcinema. I didn't even know what a Microcinema was. And it was great. And I had friends that told me, you should come. It's really fun. And then I just started going to some of the other series that they have there. There's a bunch of different people who do programs, and there's a lot of events. There's like Toronto. They're actually talking about doing a zine festival coming up soon. And I decided I really wanted to do a film series on Mads Mikkelsen, the Danish actor. And after I finished that, actually before I finished that, I decided, I should do one on Cillian Murphy because he's another one of my favorite actors. And so I came up with the name Cillian Me Softly, which I thought it was so good. I had to use it. So Eyesore is amazing. Video Store Day is coming up on October 18th. So if you're in the Toronto area, you should check it out. There's going to be deep discounts on all types of DVDs, Blu-rays, 4Ks, VHS. There's going to be karaoke. There's going to be live Twitch streaming. People come in and out. There's going to be multiple hosts, giveaways. It's amazing. It's such a great community of sort of film nerds, but it's not limited to just, cineast, so to speak, because there's all different types of films. It's from like high art, low art, in between. There's a lot of short film festivals. The Toronto Indie Horror Fest was just there. There's really something for everybody. So it's a great community space. And I really feel like it's kind of like a home away from home. I know that's kind of corny, but yeah, it's really true. So yeah, it's a great place.
My first interaction with Eyesore Cinema was per extension of the New Friends Fest DIY punk festival, because they had a film screening for one of these bands on the Might of Princes, who had a micro documentary made by one of the band members as the band was reforming, and they got to screen it as part of the festival at Eyesore Cinema. And by extension, I think Eyesore Cinema also embodies a lot of this DIY spirit that the New Friends Fest, which they call a DIY festival, embodies. A lot of grassroots fundraising, grassroots organizing, zines galore at that festival, as well as at Eyesore, obviously. So there's a bit of a overlap with, punk ideology and I don't know, symbolism or whatever, and this Eyesore Cinema. So it really does go hand in hand.
Definitely.
I'm only saying this to recommend anyone listening to this to go check out Eyesore, because it's a very cool place. So why Cillian Murphy in particular? Like, what got you? Was there a specific movie that, like, his dreamy blue eyes?
Oh man, the dreamy blue eyes. I was just telling someone yesterday that when Inception had come out, and this was like well after I was into him as a fan, someone's boyfriend said, "Oh, I got lost in his eyes." And it was was just so funny. It made me think of that when I was thinking about him yesterday, and how everybody always mentions his eyes, of course. And then I just thought that was such a funny, like, real life quote from someone. But yeah, I had seen 28 Days Later in the theater, actually, when it came out, and it was great. I kind of thought of him as sort of a Ewan McGregor type. At that point, I was really into Ewan McGregor, and not that I still don't like him, but like I was kind of newly into him, and having just seen him in Velvet Goldmine a few years before, and so that kind of kickstarted that. So when I saw Batman Begins, which I saw for Christian Bale because I was a big fan of his at the time as well. And then I saw his role, Cillian's role, as this kind of creepy villain. And he was so chilling. Like, he was genuinely scary to me. And so I had to know more about him. And I was really into LiveJournal at the time. I'm really dating myself here. But I found through people on LiveJournal that he had a movie coming out based on a novel called Breakfast on Pluto, which is directed by Neil Jordan. And he plays a trans character who may or may not be an IRA terrorist. And it was set in the 70s. And just all of the film stills and the news about it and the trailers, I became so obsessed with the soundtrack, with the movie, with this, the cast. And that was really how I became a huge fan. And then, of course, it was, okay, let's find everything he's done. What is he going to be in next? And he actually did appear in town for the TIFF premiere of the film, but I wasn't able to go to that. And so I had to make do with just seeing it in a local theater. I think I saw it 3 times while it was playing. It only played for a couple of weeks, but yeah, so that was it. And so that was like, 20 years ago. And it's great. I mean, his career has introduced me to so many great movies, directors, other actors, and just to watch him grow as an actor in terms of not just his talent, but his exposure to people. And then now, he's won an Oscar, which is a huge achievement. And I think it's really nice that he's kind of getting the kind of mainstream acceptance that he should have had for so long. He might say differently. He might think, oh, he wasn't worthy. But I think it's really a testament to his talent and his ability to choose really interesting roles that he is where he is today in terms of, recognition.
I had a very similar introduction to Cillian Murphy with 28 Days Later, but I saw that, I think, the way a lot of people might have seen it, which is for free on Daily Motion when they were like,
wow,
at again 360p, like no context behind this movie. And it was, for my 12-year-old mind, completely mind-blowing. Because, again, like I was 1 year old when the movie actually debuted. Oh, wait, no. What year was it? 2000, was it 2001?
2001 or 2, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I was like 1 or 2 years old
when
the film came out. But this premiere or not premiere, this like free link that I got sent to a Daily Motion version of this film on 360p was just so visceral and mind-blowing to me. And I have an episode, not to hijack your story at all.
Oh, no.
I do already have a 28 years later and 28 days later episode of the podcast with Professor Megan Sutherland at the University of Toronto, who teaches a course on zombies. So anyone listening to this should absolutely go check it out. It's a great episode. We chat about what exactly that film did differently, why it's so visceral, what is it about our fast culture that. But Cillian Murphy in particular, amazing lead performance, just like from a transformation of like a total, I don't know, like blank slate type of just shock, the portrayal of pure shock, like what that even looks like on screen, to somebody who is determined to survive and, I don't know, do anything to survive, is a really very, very cool character arc. but brings us very nicely to, I think, Sunshine, which is a more subdued, despite the fact that the stakes are
Right.
just as severe, if not even crazier in Sunshine than they were in
Yeah.
20. Because in 28 Days Later, shit's already hit the fan. Everything's already fucked up, right?
Right.
Everything's like the world's done. Like it doesn't look like there's any hope or end in sight. But with Sunshine, that is like the driving force of that movie, is that there is some glimmer of hope. So we can get started on Sunshine, I guess. Cillian Murphy plays Robert Capa, the physicist, who is aboard this doomed, semi-doomed mission to the sun to reboot the sun and drive a fission bomb right into the heart of the sun and kickstart it to save humanity.
Which is an interesting parallel to Oppenheimer, which I was thinking while I was
Yes.
watching it, because he says "my bomb" at one scene. It's like,
Mm.
oh, we're going to bring the bomb, my bomb. And I was like, oh, wow, so weird that he ended up being the progenitor of, the nuclear age in Oppenheimer. It's just really a really interesting kind of trivia comparison there.
Absolutely. But like the function of his knowledge as a source of survival on this ship is another driving plot point
Yeah.
behind his fantastic performance. It's my bomb, which means that you need me on this
Yeah.
ship, and that question comes up a number of times in Sunshine about which of our breathers should survive on this ship, and we get a great dichotomy between him and Mace, of course, played by Chris Evans, and we can't forget the side characters. I'll let you take on Cillian Murphy, but there is just an incredible dynamic, an incredible cast of characters here. And I read when I was doing research for this episode that they had lived together for a couple of months prior to shooting,
They
to
did.
kind of get this sensation of being in a tightly run ship. And not to mention, but Cillian Murphy had a child at that time, had just had a newborn. So he was leaving. So as an outsider coming back in, everyone else was stuck, the seven of them living together. And then Cillian Murphy is getting to leave and go see family, coming back and forth really adds to this.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that. But
Yeah.
yeah. Wow.
So what can you say about Robert Capa and how it kind of fits into the rest of Cillian Murphy's portrayals or characters?
I mean, much like his 28 Days Later character, who really kind of undergoes a transformation. And I don't know where I read or heard this. I'm going to assume it was in one of my film classes that I took when I was in school, that a good film has to show someone transforming or changing, or something is different than it was in the beginning. And of course, that's like really broad, because obviously there are films where the main character doesn't change at all, and that's kind of the appeal of it. But he is particularly good at that transformation. That is something that I've always liked about him, and just actors in general, some kind of transformation within the film. And so in the beginning, he's kind of low key, even though he has this huge responsibility, and he's the physicist on the ship. And it's interesting how it plays around with that sort of science fiction trope of, oh, all the members of the crew are sitting around at the table, like discussing, whatever's going on. And, there's going to be friction, like in Alien, when it's, oh, we need to get paid. The crew that's just kind of the mechanics, they're not like the scientists of the ship. And there's this weird, like, tension between them. And there is that in Sunshine as well. But it's funny because one of the very first times you see him, he's fighting with the Chris Evans character, Mace.
Right.
And the women are just like, oh, yeah, here we go again, testosterone.
Yes, that's right. We have a surge of masculinity.
Yes,
in the cabin,
exactly. Right? Which is funny because Chris Evans is like a pretty buff guy, even in this movie. And this was before he got super jacked for Captain America.
Right.
And Cillian's a rather slender, kind of ethereal, I know is a word that gets used a lot, but in here he really is.
Yeah, it
And
just has soft features.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's funny that the sort of bronze versus brain thing is a thing that's supposed to be tension, but really Chris Evans he's smart too. And I think because they're both smart, there's friction. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I think that's part of it, because towards the end, spoiler alert, they kind of realize like, oh, we're actually not that important to what's going to happen. So it's cool if we die to make this thing happen. And it's fun to watch. I mean, it's stressful, but it's fun to watch the characters, kind of be like, well, I don't want to die, to go from that to like, oh yeah, I guess it's okay if I die. Like, and I think one really key scene is when Kappa and the captain of the ship go out to repair those panels. And Kappa's terrified. He's shaking. He's like hyperventilating. He tries to calm his breathing. He's like sweating. He's trying to get back before the sun comes across the panels and burns them up. And he knows that, is it Kaneda?
Kaneda.
Yeah,
Captain
he's
Kaneda.
not going to come back. So he has to go back. And once that happens, he's fine with dying, because he's already been through the fear of it. And it didn't happen. So I think that at that point he knows, like, okay, well, if I die, then I die, because this bomb needs to be dropped into the sun. Like, that's the point of the mission.
We should definitely dive a little bit later into the different types of ego deaths that happen in this film, from Kappa and Mace, and then compare that to the sort of ego death or maybe religious awakening that happens with Pinbacker. That's certainly a dynamic that the film consistently push and pull between acting like God, which is essentially, I don't know, maybe the film argues that creating a nuclear bomb is kind of like being God, or deciding to kickstart the sun is an act of God that humanity shouldn't necessarily have access to, versus like submitting to the power of the sun and realizing that this is not something you a human should be able to tackle with. Is just an amazing dichotomy. Another reason I love the film so much is that the film portrays the sun as life-giving and also like the arbiter of death, the judge, the jury, and the executioner, which is brilliant. The sun is a character in and of itself. It doesn't get a credit in the film, but it's
well, I think they kind of doomed themselves by naming it Icarus, because
right.
And it's like really on the nose, because there's Icarus II, because Icarus I, quote unquote, flew too close to the sun. I mean, they literally did. And you think, oh, well, they flew too close. Their reach exceeded their grasp, or, they're so close that they can't be, I guess, look at it objectively. They're too close. There's so much of that. And I think that's visually shown quite brilliantly with the continued close-ups of eyes. It almost makes it like a Blade Runner type of aesthetic, because there's the Icarus shield, which looks like an eye, and then lots of close-ups of eyes. There's the suits where you can only see the eyes.
Right.
There's lots of point of view shots, and there's also this idea, which I didn't even know was a theory, that when they see Pinbacker, he's not even real, that he's some sort of thing that they've hallucinated, which I don't think is true, but I like the idea that they're seeing things and they don't believe that it's actually real. In fact, when Pinbacker is shown, you really don't ever see him. You just see sort of like this haze, like he's
after effect.
Like he's out of phase, like he's some sort of like almost like a Dr. Manhattan thing, where he's become this more than a person. He's like energy. I don't know if you've ever seen, this is like a really old show, but in Johnny Quest, which was this cartoon
Can't say I
in
have.
the 60s, I guess. So it was always played on TV when I was a kid. And one of the episodes, there's an energy monster. And so they can't see it. They know it's causing destruction. So they decide to pour paint on it. and then they can see it to get it. And as a kid, that was just like really cool. So this kind of has that same vibe where he's a man, but I mean, also his mind is gone. You know, he's got this weird obsession with like, oh, I'm God's messenger. You know,
Right.
God spoke to me, but then he thinks he's more than human. Again, back to the Blade Runner thing again. But yeah, it's a really interesting look at perception versus reality versus, you know, what they thought they were going to do versus what ended up happening. So yeah, it kind of subverts a lot of their own expectations about what they thought it was going to be when they took this mission.
I'd also like to point out that the center of a person's eye is almost a visual opposite to the sun itself, which is all encompassing bright white or yellow light. And then you look into someone's eyes and it's pitch black, right? The exposure that the viewer gets to the sun is very specific, right? Like, we only get a few glimmers of color outside of the cold, typical space color palette of gray and metallic and blue and green. Then we have the Earth room, which also, the light in that Earth room scene is not the light that we get from the real sun, which I love. It's a different sort of light. It's artificial. It looks like halogen bulbs. They look like LCDs, right? Like little pixels on a screen. We get scenes of the crew recording their messages, and they're pixelated, and they're shrouded with digital noise, like the Matrix style, like green digital whatever numbers floating in the background. We also get Pinbacker's numerous messages, which are pixelated and out of focus. We're not entirely sure just how damaged his body is from sun exposure. So, like, the little glimpses that we get of the sun are always, we either find we find them mesmerizing, or the characters themselves are sat in front of the screen like they're watching some television debut. They're just sitting around the circle. We get a moment of peace with the crew when they see Mercury fly by. Those were the small glimmers of peace that the crew gets access to in this film, the bit of respite. But it's only when exposed to this true natural light that they really get that sensation.
It's interesting you brought that up, because their like holodeck, so to speak, the Earth room is like an IMAX screen. But the way it's shown is also like when they're in the sunroom and Searle, for example, says, "Oh, can you turn it to 4%?" And Icarus says, "Oh no, that's not going to work. Let's do 3.1." And even that is overwhelming. I mean, he starts to
only get 30 seconds of 3.1.
Yeah, and he gets starts to get sunburned and probably has some, radiation poisoning. So it is interesting. Again, going back to the looking, they're either looking at the real sun through a screen, or they're looking at a fake Earth through a screen.
Yeah.
So it's
sending messages, communicating with each other through screens. I love the decision to shoot on film for a film that is so embedded in like the digital world and screens and monitors and digital voice. It's I read online, uses like 3 different film stocks and cameras depending on the scene. The Earth room is shot on 65 millimeter, and the rest of the film is shot on 35 millimeter. The outdoor kind of like space exploration scenes are they're like layered on top. The film was layered on top of one another to get an effect of the sun beaming over the spaceship. So there's a lot of really cool, intricate,
really neat
technical details of this film. But I don't want to get hung up on the specific like cinematography. It's more about, I think the message is so it's just so embedded in the environmental storytelling of this film. What they choose to show and what they choose to obscure. You brought up Searle briefly too. Searle's like physical decomposition as this film goes on. We just see him like peel pieces of his lips off, and like his skin is getting worse. He has a goggle sunburn around his eyes. Just like all of these great details. that very clearly kind of give off the sensation that he is losing his mind a little bit to this, to the power of the sun.
Yeah.
The one psychologist, the guy who's supposed to
Right,
be.
right. But I think, you know, in the end, he seems more grounded than almost anybody else. Because, you know, he accepts like, okay, I'm going to stay and do the airlock because, you know, that's my role in this whole psychodrama.
Well, sort of, but he also does take it as the one opportunity to get enveloped by the sun fully.
Right?
Right? So,
but what a way to go. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd rather go out that way than just the way that poor Harvey goes out, which is like the Space Oddity way, like floating around my tin can, and then he just like freezes. I remember seeing Mission to Mars a few years before this, and well, more than a few years, but there's a similar scene where someone just gets like untethered from their umbilical cord, and they just like freeze out in space, which, you know, that is what really happens. But wow, do they drive that point home with that close up of his eye and the skin just turning into frost? Like, it's super creepy. But
the
yeah,
last breath freezing too.
No, I'd way rather
Brutal.
go out with the sun. way more.
Sure.
Yeah, that's how I want to go.
Harvey, speaking of, is perhaps the only character that really doesn't experience that ego death.
No.
You know, he is afraid of dying. He's very much afraid of not making it back from this mission, hasn't fully accepted the fact that this is a doomed mission if they manage to get this bomb into the sun. And then he goes out anyways, just from a freak ricochet off of this exploding airlock. So he wasn't really in control of his own fate, because to me it feels like because he didn't let go fully. You know, he was karmic.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That's his fate.
I mean, it's funny because I was thinking, you know, there's other movies where, I mean, well, two things. There's the distress signal, which we can talk about. And how that works in this film as well as like other similar films. But what is interesting about Sunshine is that it's done as a science fiction sort of spiritual journey, and other films with similar things like I don't know, Geostorm, Moonfall, The Core, Armageddon, those are all like disaster / action movies, you know, and those have way more of this like, we're gonna get you, and, you know, the team, and like the triumph for America, and all this sort of like rah stuff, with, of course, like ridiculous, you know, technical stuff that wouldn't happen. And even though like the things in Sunshine couldn't really happen, it's done in a way where you don't think, well, that would never happen. I mean, they did consult with a physicist, Brian Cox. But even, you know, he said, I even accept that some of the things in here are not factual, because otherwise you wouldn't have this kind of a movie. I mean, you have to suspend some disbelief. But yeah, so I just like that it was approached from that instead of a disaster movie, which I love disaster movies, but this was like really immersive, and like the pacing is so good. It's stressful. Like any movie where people are out in space and they have a mission, it's like, well, they're doomed. Like, it's going to happen. So the whole movie is like, okay, when are they going to be doomed? When's this next thing going to happen? And so the tension is really ratcheted up in a way that like a film like Alien did so well. And there really aren't that many space movies that succeed in that tension. I mean, I know there's like Solaris, for example, and Dark Star, Silent Running, those kinds of things. But most of the focus on those kinds of movies are like the Armageddons and the kind of disaster over the top type narratives. And we really don't get that with this. It's more of a human story.
Which is so surprising, because the stakes are still the same as any of those movies you just listed, right? The stakes are still, the Earth is going to end. And for me, I love art house indie films where people just have conversations for 2 hours, right? The crazy stakes movies where, you know, the earth is ending, it's never really, I glaze over. I just like, you know, I don't know, it doesn't click in my head
Yeah.
that the stakes are that high. The thing that, again, this film kind of, what does it for me is that despite that being the case, you're still stuck in a room with 8 people. You're
Yeah.
still getting real human rivalries and disagreements, but they're also what everything you were saying about hard science. I don't know if you like that term or not. I know some people have an issue with it, but there's like soft science fiction
Right.
where it's like it's more of a fantasy element. Like, you know, I guess Star Wars could be considered soft science fiction. There's not really they're not really talking about how the force works physics
Right.
wise, right? But this film, much like the 3-body problem, much like I guess not really Solaris in a way. Solaris, you know, Tarkovsky was interested in human
Right.
curiosity and but what do you lose when you stare at the stars, and what do you leave behind when you stare at the stars? This is really grounded in science, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe not 100% accurately or anything, but with the conversations that Danny Boyle and Alex Garland were having with Brian Cox, it feels grounded in reality, but it doesn't get bogged down in these details in a way that's like, you just like, again, you just glaze over when they get into the
Right. Right.
technicalities. It's a really good balance of human storytelling, the fear of death that kind of drives a lot of the human fallibilities, you know, what sort of follies we fall into, but also just a great character study and like everything else that I love about this film. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. I do like the way that like I said earlier, that the um, distress call is
Oh yeah,
used.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of movies that use the distress call, and I was trying to think of them, and then I was like, well, I know there's more. What are they? So I had to go do a quick Google search. And so the first thing I thought of was that the noise, the distress call, sounds like the VHS noise from The Ring, like the
Mm-hmm.
American remake, which is super creepy. And to me, makes this movie like a space horror movie, not
Mm-hmm.
just a science fiction movie. But I don't know if you've seen the movie Life with Jake Gyllenhaal,
Oh no.
but it's very stressful. There is a total like creepy distress call thing that just turns out so badly, and it's got such a bleak ending.
Oh,
It's a
nice.
really stressful movie. If you've seen the movie Splice,
Oh yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
there's a lot of splice in this movie, and
Mm.
it's just chilling. Don't watch this before you go to bed. I made that mistake and I had terrible dreams. But the movie
Mm.
Supernova is another movie that has a distress call. I mean, Alien does too. But I mean, that's the one that I think most people would think of. But I know
With Sunshine especially. I mean, that
yeah,
comparison is just
yeah.
so,
It's like when you
yeah.
hear a distress call, just ignore it. Oh, I'm pretty sure that the Toby Hooper Life Force, there's a distress call in there too. And it turns
Okay,
out,
yeah.
oh yeah, we're just vampires. We just want to suck your blood. So yeah, the message is ignore the distress call. So as soon as
Mm.
it comes, you know it's going to be, things are not going to go the way that they want them to.
Yeah, the sound design of that distress call in Sunshine is, I can hear it in my head. I can't redo it
It's
vocally, but it's
super
so good.
creepy.
Yeah. Every podcast that I've listened to talking about this film has mentioned that the sound design is just, it rings in their head after they finish the film, that this distress call is just so visceral. I don't know how they captured it, but it's just very haunting.
It
And
is,
we
yeah.
get that's like the comms director's one role really in the film, is to bring everyone together and say, hey, I think there's still some possibility that people are alive on Icarus, given the fact that they have self-replenishing oxygen, given the fact that they have self-replenishing food. There's a chance that these
Mm-hmm.
people who disappeared 7 years ago are still alive. And then you just hear throughout the film a reminder of why everything is going wrong with this constantly reoccurring sound of the distress call, which is
Yeah.
just so So brutal.
Yeah. I mean, this film again succeeds in a lot of ways that, and not that they're pitted against each other, but Mission to Mars has similar sort of oxygen room with plants. And when the crew goes to figure out what happened to the previous crew, you've got Don Cheadle, who's a great actor, who's really kind of loopy in this movie.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, like, did they not give people psych tests before they go onto these missions to see, like, are they going to make it or are they just going to lose it? But I mean, you can't really predict that kind of thing, right? Because there's one thing to do like the tests, like when Cassie tells Kappa, oh, you've been through this, you've done the test, you'll be fine. But yeah, when you're actually doing it, it's very different. And I don't know if anybody can really prepare for that. So,
I think one of my favorite interactions in this film is Cassie and Robert Capa and Cillian Murphy together in this control room of his bomb,
Yeah.
right? Where they talk about whether they're scared or not of this mission, and how Cassie is still holding on to some fear of death. She also hasn't really fully had this ego death or out-of-body experience that Cillian Murphy has, Robert Capa has in this film. But I especially, I think that monologue that he gives, it's pretty short, but that monologue that he gives where he's talking about not being afraid anymore, I think that's the highlight of his performance in this film.
It's really good.
It's very subdued, but it just kind of comes out of nowhere also. Because his conversations are very short, abrupt. These guys are serious scientists. They're not like loopy scientists, right? There's not much humor to be found in this film, honestly. They have moments of hope. They get exposed to, again, like this distress beacon, or maybe they properly righted the Icarus against the sun, and they get a glimmer of hope before it's ripped away from them immediately. But that's not that their conversations are so matter of fact. And then out of the blue, we just get this wonderful philosophical, deep conversation about how these characters are coping with the fact that they might never return from this mission. And that's, to me, a real highlight because it's pitted against the rest of this film, which is short, abrupt, logical, smart scientists solving a task. And then,
and it's funny that as Cap is trying to get to the bomb room or whatever, I can't remember what it's called, and he just falls over in the spacesuit because it's so bulky, and he's just so mad, like, I can't believe I'm this close and I tripped and fell, and that's what's going to be the end. That's what's going to be the doom of the Earth, is that I tripped and fell in a bulky spacesuit, and you just see all those emotions like go through his face. He's just so pissed off. It's almost like in a movie like maybe Terminator 2 or actually not even Terminator 2, the first Terminator, when she gets her Achilles tendon gets cut when she's trying to escape, and it's like, of all the things that a superhuman robot could do, that's not the one that you would think would make you lose it. You know what I mean? It's that's like such, like, that could happen to anybody. That could happen with just another person, or you were playing a sport and you tore your Achilles tendon. I think it's her Achilles tendon. But so it's really neat how it just keeps coming back to these little physical things, like Trey, he didn't do the calculations for the turning of the shield. He did everything else, but he didn't do that. But like, the people are just human. Like there's not going to be a way where there's not some human aspect to even the most technological advancements.
Well, I also appreciate that from the film, that this is, despite the voice of Icarus, it seems to be some sort of AI, some sort of automated control hub. There is still some element of push and pull with the crew, that they have to take back control of the ship from Icarus. Whereas Icarus might want to right the ship automatically and preserve the mission. It's basically egoless. The ship. It doesn't want to save Kaneda. as the sun is crossing the horizon of the ship. It doesn't want to save Kaneda, and then Mace chimes in and says, "Yep, that's right. The priority is not Kaneda. The priority is this last bomb." Another detail we forgot to mention: they've mined all fission material from Earth for this one bomb. So that's it. That's their last chance, unless they could somehow get a hold of Icarus I, of course.
Right.
But the thing about the Icarus computer is that, again, like you said, it just leaves the human element, but not fully. It's just the balance, again, of this film it's not just like mindless, the AI is doing everything and you're just there keeping an eye on it. Like Trey making a completely normal human mistake in a time like this seems like unforgivable, but he has to convince himself in that great performance of his
it's heartbreaking,
where he's like people fuck up, people make mistakes, right? And he's like only telling himself, no one's really responding to him. But there's like, again, there's no reprisal here. There's no I don't know, comfort, right? They can't offer a comfort. That's their only shot.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the third act?
Absolutely. Yes, let's chat about the third act. Which to me has always been weird. Like I don't like diving into discourse before I watch a film.
Oh, me either.
I love reading written reviews of cinema. It's like one of my all-time favorite hobbies, especially with Letterboxd now. It's just easy to get quick, quick, stupid, like little thoughts from your friends or people who get a lot of likes on Letterboxd or whatever. But that's less serious than, like a nice critique, a nicely written, or a great zine, which is always such a joy to read. But to me, I didn't realize the lore behind Sunshine and that it didn't do so well, and that also, fan-wise, people really don't like this third act. And it's just so surprising to me because I thought it ramps up the tension so perfectly. They're still grounded in this. I find I don't necessarily subscribe to the theory that Pinbacker isn't real.
Oh, right, yeah.
I have a feeling that there, from everything that we know about the way that Icarus works, he could have survived. Now, can he really survive with the injuries that he has from sun exposure and talking to God? I'm not 100% sure, of course, but rather the sense or the idea that the film doesn't all of a sudden throw everything about Icarus out of the window. They're suddenly up against someone who, I don't know, has become the sun, or maybe thinks they are as powerful as the sun.
Yes.
The kind of dark side of the sun, which is funny because the sun has no dark side. I think it's great. Great way of looking at it. Pinbacker is... you can interpret him as so many different things. What do you think of Pinbacker as a character?
I read something about how people didn't like the third act, which they felt was just a typical slasher, that's so silly. I mean, okay, there's a killer unseen who's going around taking everybody out, but with a slasher, it's usually, we don't know why this killer is doing it, like in Halloween. They try to get into it with the sequels and stuff, like, why did he do it? But it's really just nobody
the violence
knows.
is the point, sort
of,
right?
And that's not in this. So I would totally disagree that it's a slasher.
I think we also have to keep in mind that they have to sell a movie, right?
Well, they have. Yeah. If it ended with just we all died, then
we launched Icarus into the sun, and that's
it was great. There's got to be some tension, but it's very believable to me that, again, they did all this tech stuff. They have, the ship can take control. They've got the brightest minds. They've got, a comms person. They've got somebody who can repair things. They've got a physicist. They've got Cora, who's I would assume some sort of biologist.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Searle, they've got all these different types.
We haven't
But
talked about Michelle Yeoh at all.
oh,
Also,
she's
we
so
can get
great. Like I
yeah.
love how she loves the plants and then she goes
Yes,
back and finds
it's
that one
literally her
thing.
children.
Yeah, it's just like there's constant like it's gonna be great. It's gonna be okay. Oh no, it's terrible. Oh, it's gonna be
Yeah.
okay. No, it's terrible. Like it's such a yo-yo. But
Mm.
actually I read that she was offered the role of Kaneda, but she said she didn't think she had enough experience to do it. That would have been such a cool thing
Yeah.
because it would have been very Ripley in that way, you know, to
Yeah, yeah,
have
yeah.
like this woman captain, which is so rare in these kinds of movies. If they ever have it at all. I mean, Ripley is like probably the best template for it. And even she's not even a captain. She's like an employee of the company. She's not a
Mm.
trained astronaut. You know, she's not the scientist person.
But
But
the film does subvert a lot of these kind of
yeah, it does.
space. Obviously, we've talked about how many of these they've already subverted, but I wanted to bring up briefly this the relationships outside of this ship are a lot of them are unclear,
Mm-hmm.
like whether whether Cassie and Kappa have a thing going on. Also, the message that Kappa sends back home, it's not to a wife, it's to his
Yeah.
sister
Yeah.
and to his family. I also found that to be a bit more, I thought they would, they would really ramp up this, he has some love back home or something like that. And it works really well too, because it creates some sense of familial bonds that aren't necessarily tied to like heteronormative relationships
Yes.
necessarily.
Yes.
Uh, but we do get a lot of that too with the masculine
Mm-hmm.
offs, right? Where
Yeah.
they're challenging each other
Right.
physically, and also intellectually with the debate about whether to go after Icarus One. That is,
Right.
but like everyone is sort of involved in that debate.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Oh no, just that I think it's interesting because if you were that person, if you were a member of that crew, how could you really have a family? Like you'd have to say, okay, I've got a partner, I've got children, and now I'm going to go away and I might never come back. Like it would be a lot of no, I've got to do this. I don't want to hurt someone with my absence on this mission that's super important. So that feels very true. And I think with a
Yeah.
lot of disaster movies, again, I know it sounds like I'm throwing them under the bus, but I think
Mm,
their tension is from the fact that the person has a family that they have to go back to. And that doesn't exist here, which I think
yeah.
feels more real. But as far as Pinbacker, I mean, like they've done all of this preparation, but he ironically is a human element that they literally did not consider because they
Right.
assume that everybody on that crew is gone. So
Yeah.
the fact that he kind of comes out of nowhere, he sabotages the airlock and then they think it's Trey because Trey's so upset, which I know they're all thinking kind of like off the cuff, but when you look at it after you watch the film, you're like, no, he wouldn't do that
No.
because he would be more likely to kill himself. He's not going to kill everybody else. Like he
Right.
would have been more likely to go on to the Icarus and then destroy the airlock so that he couldn't get back,
Yeah.
to sort of punish himself. But it's interesting that Pinbacker is the human element they didn't consider, even as he himself is kind of superhuman because he's not thinking like a rational, grounded human would.
Right.
Like he's got a
The
god complex.
the first time I saw the film, I wasn't 100% sure after I'd finished whether Pinbacker had killed Trey or not. But I guess the timeline doesn't match up. It was inevitably Trey
Yeah, I
who
thought that
and
too.
who ended his own life. Which is, I mean, again, it's hard to say heroic, but it's sort of something that through their calculations had to happen, and the
Yeah.
guilt was also just
Hmm.
eating him alive. But I also think, to go back to the conversation about leaving one's ego behind, that
Yeah.
he really did sacrifice himself for the mission in so many different ways. There's so many things, like you're saying, right? That you have to, for a mission like this, you would have to sacrifice. Can't have a family, can't really have a partner that you just say that I'm going on this mission to. And then during the mission, there's so many sacrifices you have to make.
Yeah, you
And,
can't be thinking about your kids when you're.
no.
It's too much of a distraction.
Or yourself.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
to me, it's unclear whether Pinbacker is like the epitome of narcissism or self-obsessed thinking and just an inflated ego where you believe you could be a messenger of God, or if it's just something that happens when you're exposed to the just sheer absolute magnitude and power of being exposed to the sun up close like that. This is I watched the film with my dad for the first time yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And I told him that, hey, this is like one of my favorites. I've seen it like 5 or 6 times now. And halfway through, he's like, I've seen this movie, which was pretty funny. He didn't even realize he saw it. But what he said, which I thought was a great comment, was that humans cannot comprehend infinity. It's impossible. And once you start thinking about it, it can really like drive you crazy. This like being shown the vastness of space is not really something we're built for mentally. And there's so much that goes into preparing actual astronauts and people who go on spacewalks for the not just physical effects of being in zero gravity for an extended period of time, but for the mental effects of isolation, what it's like looking into a void. There's just so much that could go wrong mentally when you're faced with that. I think it's probably the closest you might experience, closest you might be to like absolute nothingness.
Yeah,
right? It's just like staring off
looking
into
the
void.
Space. Exactly.
Yeah. Versus when you're looking into the sun, it's like the total opposite of that. That's like not just responsible for all of the life that we have on Earth and all of the trees and plants and Corazon's baby, the little baby that survives the oxygen fire in her garden, but also, is for Icarus the biggest danger. Again, this dichotomy comes up. And I keep thinking again about this conversation we had about the pupils and how just they're also kind of the void if you stare too deeply into someone's eyes. Because Cillian Murphy's eyes are like
they are beautiful. I mean, we're not going to get away from that. That's just a fact.
No, we can't avoid that conversation about Cillian Murphy's eyes. Very funny because they work so well.
Did you see that? There's a really funny interview that he did with like an Irish podcast about this woman where he was filming something. He was like at a fish and chip shop, and this I'll send it to you after. And this woman came up to him, and she was like, "Are you Cillian Murphy?" And he's he's doing the accent, and I mean not his accent, but like an Irish accent, like an older lady,
Yeah.
And then she says, "Your eyes aren't even that blue." And then they all just start laughing. Like, it's so funny. It's so good. Like, it's funny. Hilarious. It's like a very Irish thing. Like, you're thinking too much of yourself. Like, you're just some Irish guy. You're not some famous actor. Like, it's really funny. But yeah, so like, I mean, I think Searle says something when talking about the eyes and the void and the absence and the presence. I think he says something at some point how being in space is like a void of nothingness, but when you see the sun, it's like a void of everything.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is like such a great kind of encapsulation of what the movie's about. And I mean, there is like space madness. I know when I took a science fiction films class in film school, there was one of the lectures was about like space madness. And we actually watched some videos of astronauts like being interviewed after they came back, and they just said like really weird things. Like if something had happened to them, they were not like 100%, after that. And I feel like that's a thing that, it happens, but I don't think anybody thought they would have sun madness,
right?
Like it's weird. And it's like, they are looking into the abyss of the sun, so to speak, and they didn't expect something to be looking back at them, which is Pinbacker. So it's kind of like if in Interstellar, which I think this movie feels a lot like Interstellar, in a way. It's got a lot of the same stakes and that like connection between people that's really important. But in a lot of ways, it's like, you know, they're going out to do this thing, but they didn't expect there to be something there already. So like imagine if in the black hole of Interstellar there was something, you know, that was there that they didn't know was going to be there. Like how weird that would have been. So it's interesting to think about that.
It's kind of parallels the thinking of like early colonialists who believe that they're discovering something new and empty and theirs, but as it turns out that there's already people inhabiting this world.
Wow, I love that interpretation.
I just thought of it.
That's really interesting.
It's not fully fully realized thought, to be honest, but just like the idea that all of the power required, not just power, sorry, all of the energy required to sustain life on Earth is there in the sun already.
Yeah.
There's no new energy. The sun will die eventually.
Right.
And
it's
then
neat that there's a crew of people of all nationalities, which is so nice.
That's another thing I wanted to say.
Because in a lot of disaster movies, it's American exceptionalism. And it's like,
we don't see a country's flag.
No, there's none of that. It's very anti-political, which is fantastic. I love to see that.
It's like the only glimmer that we get of like any sort of nation at all is like the Sydney Opera House. At the end of the film, when it's covered in snow, and we actually realize the consequences of like the sun dying and what permanent winter might look like, you know, in a place that we think of as the desert. It's just like a snowfall there, right?
Yeah.
But there's no grounding. I don't know. There's no grounding moment of like Kaneda, which country he might be from, or captaining of which space program. I know that there were some discussions before the film to highlight certain countries that had very legitimate space programs.
Yes, India was one.
Yes, that's right. Which don't get their moment in cinema or in the general understanding of which countries are really pioneering space travel, which it's just always seen as China and the US.
Yeah.
Maybe Canada, maybe Russia, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is this is really a joint effort, something that's forgotten about when all of the credit goes to private companies nowadays with SpaceX or whatever.
Oh, yeah, so true, so true.
So not to say that at all that this movie might be sympathetic towards something like SpaceX, but rather a movie that might come out today with the same idea of a private company doing some sort of space-saving endeavor might not necessarily have country flags. It might have a company logo attached.
Well, that's like
to
the whole
spacesuit.
Weyland-Yutani thing, like with the Alien franchise.
Yeah.
It's always the company, you know?
Yes, yeah.
And it's because those movies have, like, I mean, 1979 was the first one, but like it's interesting, like there's still chapters in this franchise, you know, like there's the Alien Earth TV series and stuff, but I don't know that would, I feel like it plays so well as a critique of that, despite the fact that it didn't exist at the time that the movie was made, but in the future world that the Alien movie envisioned, it did exist.
Right.
So,
it's a critique of, it could be a critique of any sort of like exploitative work, culture, or labor, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that they kind of they hit the nail on the head with, you know, private space interests is a little bit disconcerting.
It is. But I mean, the first time you saw it, I personally thought that Pinbacker was like some weird sun alien. I didn't realize that he was who he was. I didn't make that connection until he said, "Oh, you're Pinbacker," like when Kappa says it. And so then I was floored. I was like, "Oh no, that's been him the whole time," because I really thought it was some weird sun alien race or something.
Right.
So I'm glad it was him, because I think if it would have been alien, it would have been way too predictable. And you know, you have to like, well, how did they survive? And you know, how did they reproduce? And we don't have to get into all that. It's just a guy who lost it.
Yeah. despite that's not the most dramatic thing they could have done, this movie does so many subdued swings. It just goes for the fences, but in a subdued way. Like when we first enter Icarus 1 and we get 2-frame long flashes of the crew's face.
Yes! I'm so glad you brought that up.
And you have to question whether you saw it or not. And then you start questioning your own sanity. Like, what was that? What did I just see? That's exactly the sort of thing. And not to mention that film itself is captured on light in relation to the sun, of course. All of these photographs are captures of light, of reflections of light. I think the film is very keenly aware of its relationship with lighting and light and the sun and et cetera, obviously. The fact that there's no alien race, it's just Pinbacker and he's just gone crazy. I mean, it's just countless. So that spacesuit, the spacewalk suit is just so good. It's just bright golden and it looks like something from BioShock. It's just crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I read that that wasn't necessarily accurate to what those kinds of suits would look like, but it was such a visual flair in comparison to, like you were talking about, the gray and the blue and the green, that Boyle really pushed for it. We have to have this because, I mean, it looks, and it's so bulky. It's so awkward, right?
Right. Like that moment you were talking about when Cillian Murphy falls flat on his face.
Yeah.
I don't remember why I wanted to loop this back, but anyways, Cillian Murphy's kind of persona in the public, he's a very private person. When he does give interviews, it's usually to interviewers that he trusts and knows the environment around and will talk about things that he's into. He's a huge music buff.
Yes,
he himself is a DJ. But generally speaking, the persona, despite the powerhouse performances that he's given in the past, he's a very like chill, kind of subdued guy. But I think this might be, now correct me if I'm wrong, you know his performance is better than anyone else. This might be the most Cillian Murphy performance of his films. Like, this is like the most of Cillian Murphy in a character. But I want to hear your argument.
Well, he himself said that the character in the movie Steve was written for him. And so he has recently said, like, there's a lot of him in that character.
That's not out yet, right?
No, that's the one that just premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. But it got very limited release. I think it's on Netflix next week or something, or maybe it already came out on Netflix.
I can't wait to hear what you think about it.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to see it. I'm just 2 films behind that and Small Things Like These, which was I think last year. But yeah, like, I don't know, like, he does play a lot of these sort of normal person roles, like, and I don't mean to say that, these smaller roles, or that's how he is, but he does play a lot of these sort of like regular character roles, which is really cool because then he played, like, you know, Oppenheimer, who's like a very well-known person, or a famous comic book villain. So, but he always brings the same sort of humanity to it, that he would to just, you know, like in the movie Broken, where he plays a teacher. Actually, he plays a teacher in Steve as well. Yeah. So, you know, I don't know, like, he is pretty laid back in this. I can't imagine him starting a fight with somebody, though. That just doesn't seem like him.
That's fair.
But, you know, I don't know him. Maybe he does.
I think Mace started those fights.
Yes, he did. I feel like, you know, but he doesn't. Does he do any of this? Because every time there's an interview, like the disappointed Cillian Murphy meme, he's always like,
yes.
His
arms.
Absolutely.
You know when he does it? When he's sitting, when they're sitting in a circle and it pans to him after they say it has to be our physicist who makes the decision.
Oh, yes, goes, you're right.
Shit.
Yes, you're right. Yeah,
definitely.
That's so funny. You're right. Yeah. God, it's amazing to think that, you know, his character in like Peaky Blinders is just such a over the top, like broken / macho, like toxic masculinity person who still has like that, well, my family grew up discriminated against, and I don't trust rich people, even though I am one. And then, like the fighting, the anti-fascist leanings towards the last couple of seasons, there's still that. Like, even though Tommy Shelby is not a good guy, he's still not a fascist. Like, he's very vocal that this guy is not going to be in power. Like, I'm going to take him down. So yeah, I really like that. Like, he's never played some like sort of cartoonish thing that's just not relatable at all, which is a pretty amazing thing, because a lot of actors, you just don't get the sense that they're like, when they're playing the role, that there's no connection. They're speaking the words and they're acting, but you don't really believe it. And that's one thing I really appreciate about him. You really believe that he's that person.
Well, Chris Evans to me just could have been that guy too.
Yes,
there were so many great performances before Marvel slop.
Yes, I know.
Life.
He's very underrated in that way.
Yeah.
Of just being a regular guy.
Yeah. And then Snowpiercer and this film, and just, I mean, these are stylized films, don't get me wrong, but there is that level of like connection to just a normal dude, I guess.
Yeah, very true. And in Knives Out too.
Oh yeah, I guess
like
so. Yeah, that's right.
Typical like manipulative jerk.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Everyone has encountered somebody like that. Yeah.
Just to wrap up what we were saying about the flashes. Did you want to? Was there something you wanted to say?
When I was rewatching it, and I can't remember if I'd seen that or noticed it the last time I watched it, but I had to pause, and then I went back frame by frame, and I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. I might have noticed it in the theater, but I don't remember. Unfortunately, when I saw this movie in the theater, there were people right in front of me that were laughing and talking the whole time.
Oh,
which was
too bad.
Such a bummer, because like it really, I don't like to use the expression, it took me out of the film, but it was very distracting. Like, there'd be a moment like when Trey dies or something, and they were just laughing. And I'm thinking, oh, come on, guys. Like, go sit in the very back row where we can hear you. Like, this is like, I'm invested in this.
Cillian is not in 28 Years Later, but my first viewing of 28 Years Later was ruined by talking. So I've had that.
So sorry. That's the worst.
It's okay. I saw it again in preparation for the pod, so it was totally fine.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. What a bummer.
Yeah, 28 Days Later, another one that means a lot to me.
Same,
just through my, I guess, exposure to films before I really got into it, like in the last 4 or 5 years. Like, I'm not as well read as everyone that I have on the show. I only have like 5 years of keeping track of and really just getting obsessed with this world of movies. And
everybody has to start somewhere, man.
Yeah. But there are a number. I have one of my favorite lists that I've made on Letterboxd is titled "Movies I Was Too Young to Watch with My Dad."
Oh, I love that.
In other words, the dad film canon. So it's like it's movies like Con Air.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a total dad film.
I was like 10 years old watching Con Air with my dad. Leaving Las Vegas.
Oh, I've still never seen that.
Hunt for Red October.
Oh yeah, totally. That's so funny.
But total this is one of those movies, 28 Days Later in particular, that I had just like stumbled on and discovered at a young age. Didn't really understand fully what I was seeing, and didn't realize that movies could be like this. They could be shot renegade style, just in the middle of a city. They could be so viciously scary and exciting, and they just look so different from what I was seeing at that time that I think really imprinted in my mind.
Yeah.
And I think in a way Cillian Murphy had imprinted in my mind. Now, I'm really not a fan of the Dark Knight series at all. Like I could take it or leave it. I could take it or leave it. But again, just he has so much staying power in my memory of like getting into movies and his performances. I don't know. I can't rave enough about his acting skills.
Yeah, The Wind That Shakes the Barley.
Still haven't seen that. Definitely need to.
Completely upended and I mean, Like I have a degree in film studies. I saw a lot of movies in my film classes. That opened my eyes and opened my mind to different types of film genre,
Sure,
acting,
yeah.
etc. But The Wind That Shakes the Barley was just so like just not like anything I'd ever seen. It was so anti, and I don't mean anti like actively anti-Hollywood. It just wasn't like a Hollywood movie.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
like a low budget indie. It was just something else. And it kind of ruined me for seeing anything for a really long time, because a movie would come out and think, no, it's too glossy, it's too artificial, which I love artificial movies. I love like over the top film noir and fantasy,
Sure.
like like a movie like Xanadu or something, which is like
Mm.
over the top, but yeah, it's just so different. And I mean, I know a lot of that has to do with Ken Loach and his style.
Yeah.
But just even the acting, you can't make a movie like that without having a cast that's going to be up to the task. So yeah, it's pretty amazing how my perspective on, what cinema can be is also informed by his acting choices.
Okay, to wrap things up, let's
Cool.
get into some rapid
Okay.
fire questions. You can give like a proper answer. It doesn't need
Okay.
to be super quick, but to start us off, what is your pick for an underrated Cillian Murphy performance?
Oh, wow. I always say a comedy, because he's in so many heavy movies, and he would probably roll his eyes and disagree. But I just love him in Washington Detectives, because he's just such a hapless goof. And he's just so silly and very like cute and charming. And it's just such a fun movie, especially if you're like a movie dork, because his character is like a big movie nerd. So yeah, that's a great fun movie.
With Spooktober coming up, and we're in the midst of spooky season now, what is your choice? Maybe not Cillian Murphy. How about just like an underrated horror pick that you would like to share with the
an
audience?
Underrated horror pick. Oh man. I mean, Mike Flanagan is very well known now for all of his like adaptations and stuff, but like one of his first films, if not the first, might have been the second, is called Absentia. It's like a super low budget horror movie, lots of practical effects, we don't really know what's going on. There's a lot of dark spaces. It's so creepy. I absolutely love that movie. It's like a genuinely scary movie there's just not much of a monster presence in it. A lot of it is unseen or just out of the corner of your eye. And it's almost like an X-Files episode, but like with a bigger, not a bigger budget, but with a bigger, it's longer. So you can really get into it. So it's like a proper movie. So I would definitely recommend that. It's just so creepy and so great.
Nice. If you could take on any of the roles on Icarus II, what would be would you be the comms director? Would you be the botanist? Would you be the physicist? Where would you fit into Icarus one?
Yeah, probably like a comms project manager type person, because I'm super
Captain?
Oh God, no. But like some sort of like organization person. So yeah, probably like comms, something like that. Yeah.
I think I'd have to take on what I did in my degree and just go psychologist. I think,
nice.
But I think a psychologist that then loses his mind staring into the sun. Totally see myself just getting lost into the vastness of space, like our Dr. Searle. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That again, he's probably my favorite.
Yeah,
I think he's my favorite character.
Cliff Curtis is a great actor.
Yeah,
too.
he is so underrated.
Things. Very.
Oh my God, he's so underrated.
Very.
I'd never hear that name. Never hear people talk about Cliff Curtis.
He's totally one of those guys.
Yeah, just character actors, I guess.
Yeah.
They get kind of what's the word, like just set to the side a little bit in favor of the lead actors and whatnot. It just makes sense, I guess.
I actually want to send you an article I wrote before Cillian started to be more of like going towards the leading actor, like before Oppenheimer, where I was worried that he would always be that guy.
Oh, very cool.
So
I'll link it in the description too, if that's okay.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
To wrap things up, if you want to take a moment to promote the screenings, and then any way people can find you online, or your zines especially, or any sort of other articles, written work, anything you'd like to point
yeah,
people in
you
the
can
direction.
find me. I'm pretty active on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is Social Justice Wendigo, which is a little Hannibal play on words. I also have a website, lesliekhatton.com, where I have links to a bunch of articles, including my resume, where I just link like pretty much every place I've ever written for. I did have a website for a long time called popshifter.com, which isn't active. I'm keep putting off, how am I going to archive this without losing kind of, the quality of it, and making it like text only. But yeah, I've got stuff in print form on different blogs and websites and stuff. So I brought some of that back in the zines that I did. So the two zines I have are Cillian Me Softly, which has some other contributors, people that had written for Pop Shifter in the past. And then the Mad About Mad zine is all me. It's all stuff I wrote. Some of it's just like silly, like kind of funny stuff. And I'm also working on, with a friend of mine, we're doing a Duran Duran fanzine, just to put it completely in a different genre and go music. Because we were both big Duran Duran fans, and we were thinking, what would be a good way to have like a screening of a Duran Duran concert movie? Oh, we could do a zine to go along with it. So that's going to happen sometime in the next few months. There's a lot of screening series at Eyesore that, like, I think every night this month, there's just something amazing going on. They just played Pin, which is super creepy Canadian film about like a anatomical doll that talks, and or I don't know. It's hard to explain. I've never seen the whole thing because, quite honestly, it really freaked me out. I didn't know if I could handle it. And I've seen some pretty gory horror movies. This is like real psychological. But there's going to be a screening of Lair of the White Worm. There's screening of a Byzantium, which is a Neil Jordan vampire film. If you go to Eyesore Cinema, Eyesore_cinema on Instagram, they've got a lot of the calendars up there, and you can see like trailers and stuff for the upcoming screenings. And yeah, so after Sunshine, there's going to be Breakfast on Pluto, which is my favorite Cillian Murphy performance, and my second favorite movie of all time. So
wow.
Yeah. But yeah, if you want to email me, you can at lesliekhatton@gmail.com or socialjusticewendigo@gmail.com. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leslie,
Thank
for
you.
joining
This was
us
so
on
much
the radio.
fun.
Yeah, I love Sunshine. This is such a great time for me. So thanks for coming on and chatting about one of my favorite movies. And I will link everything in the description. Of course, you guys should check out Eyesore.
I do another podcast. I'm sorry. I totally forgot.
Please,
it's about
please.
Oliver Reed.
Oh, very cool.
It's called Further Reading, and I do it with a couple of people from the Cinema Smorgasbord series of podcasts, which are all about underrated actors and actresses. I
have yet to see The Devils, and I have been
good. Something to look forward to.
Putting it off. Another problem is running into which version should I watch, and I always get FOMO.
Get the BFI. I mean, it's a region 2 or whatever the UK region is. Okay. But if you have a multi-region Blu-ray player or DVD player, it'll work, because that's what I have. But that came out like maybe 10 years ago. Okay. That's like the most official copy. Okay. So yeah, if you can find that, that's the one to watch. Yeah.
Cool. And I'll of course link your other pod.
Oh, thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great night.